no. Let's start this over. Let's start this section.
This is cheating. Like.
No.
My guest today is Om Shankar. Arguably, in my opinion, one of the best leaders in the industry. No, wait a second. When it comes to creating teams, setting team purpose, yes, unlocking teams and individuals' potential. So, howdy, Om. Howdy.
Howdy. Thanks for the kind introduction, Ilia.
How do you feel?
I feel relaxed.
That's good.
I feel good. I'm excited. Ready to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is your official role right now? Because I've lost a bit of a track on what are you doing.
Man, that's a good question. So right now I'm leading Gilbarco Vita Root's global e-mobility business. And I also have responsibility for Juxta, which is a corporate startup within Vontier, aiming to revolutionize the autonomous retail space.
That's a great goal.
Yeah, busy.
Cool. So today we'll talk about the world of EV because there are a lot of speculation, a lot of questions popping up here and there, and obviously we'll probably touch a little bit on the Juxta stuff and autonomous stores because it's another thing that is super interesting for the industry, and we see a lot of different opinions on those things. So it will be great to cover them with an expert.
Let's do it.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, as you probably know, my favorite part of the podcast is 24/7. You will have 24 seconds to answer 7 questions, different type of questions. Some of them are personal because I know you, and it's not a secret. But some of them will be a bit more generic, just to get better understanding about you as a person and as an expert.
Okay.
So if you're ready to roll, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
EV or hydrogen?
EV.
Manned or unmanned?
Unmanned.
What do you like most about petroleum retail?
How convenient it is.
What do you dislike most about petroleum retail?
When you have to spend too much time queuing up.
What is your superpower?
Leadership.
Taco or fish and chips?
Oh my God, tacos.
Arcade Fire or Coldplay?
Arcade Fire. They're from Houston.
20 seconds. We've got a new record for this show. That was amazing. We'll probably cut some parts in terms of how many times it took us to make that. But yeah, great result. What was the toughest one? I'm not surprised with your answer about your superpower because, I mean, everyone who worked with you probably can confirm. But this Arcade Fire versus Coldplay.
So Coldplay would have been the choice a long time ago, but as time goes on and as my hair fades from my head, my preference has shifted.
Nice.
Yeah.
And EV versus hydrogen, do you feel... we talk a lot about that, but do you really feel like a clash, or you think those two things can work together in the future?
I think in the future, right, we talk a lot about this mixed fuel future. And as you segment the market a bit, what's becoming very clear is that EV will dominate the light duty class. Hydrogen, with its range, with its fill-up time, has a much better place to play for heavy-duty vehicles. So I think they'll both exist simultaneously as we look to decarbonize the car park.
Cool. So there's a segmentation across various verticals.
Yeah,
that's going to happen. So that was interesting. New record 20. I don't think anyone could ever beat that.
Let's see who your next.
That was like so fast.
Yeah. Let's see.
24/7 challenge with Om Shankar. EV, right? Electric vehicles. It's on enormous hype right now. Everyone's talking about that. The projections and the forecast is about 15% CAGR in the next 8 years or something like that, plus minus. Do you feel like we all face, it's like a historical moment, not only for our industry, but for the society in general, this transition from fossil fuel into some more sustainable ones?
Yeah, I think there is no doubt that EV is a critical enabler towards this holistic decarbonized future that all of us aspire to have. I think that we are at a really interesting inflection point with EV, right? You've seen over the past, 5 years, 6 years, all these early adopters, right, that have made their claim that EV is the best. And now, right, we're waiting for that second generation of consumers to make that switch, right? And there's a couple catalysts that will ultimately drive that to fruition. The cheapening of vehicles. We're seeing Chinese OEMs make their massive push towards the European market right now. We're seeing a reduction in battery prices and sort of a push towards alternate battery chemistries from lithium ion towards hopefully solid state in the future that will reduce charging times, get rid of the range anxiety. But I think the most important thing is, how do we proliferate EV charging infrastructure around the world such that charging now becomes as ubiquitous as fueling up your ICE vehicle, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to do at Gilbarco Veeder-Root is, help people along that infrastructure journey.
Interesting. When was the last time you were driving electric vehicle yourself?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. How was your experience?
Well, my parents were an early adopter, right? And I was in Houston.
Okay.
I was in Houston over the holidays, and I was lucky enough to drive their Tesla Model X. I love that car. With Tesla, the experience is beautiful, right? They have a really wonderful ecosystem that they've created, right? That's entirely vertically integrated, which means that the problems inherently are reduced. You have a Tesla car that plugs into a Tesla charger that's powered by a Tesla backend.
Is the whole ecosystem?
The whole ecosystem is beautiful, right? So I think I have had nothing but pleasant experiences driving electric cars, but you can't say that for everyone, right? And as soon as you switch away to Tesla and you start using alternate hardware with a disparate tech stack, the challenges are aplenty.
Yeah. I remember like few years ago, I was driving my first ever my experience driving the EV car, and I'm not kidding right now, but it took me literally 10 minutes to understand how to switch it on. Like I'm not kidding.
That might be a you problem, Nate, not a car problem.
Maybe, but I believe it's a representative feedback, right? So the whole user experience when we talk about EV versus the fossil fuel car is slightly different, and across various parts of the journey.
It's still a budding industry, right? You have a whole host of different ways that you can pay for the charge at the charger. You have a whole host of different connectors that exist. Every charger is different, right? So I think this notion of standardization is going to play a critical part in helping users achieve that really seamless experience, right? We know, for example, NACS, the Tesla charging connector, has become the norm, at least in the US, which means that there's going to be a much more homogeneous sort of plugging experience. I don't know if that's a word. Payment, an area that you're awfully close to, right? Payment in the EV space. Who knows if you have to download an app? Who knows if you go to a different country, what happens, right? So standardization across payment, especially enabling users to be able to pay with a credit card versus paying with an app, that's going to be a huge catalyst.
But do you feel this legislation or standardization is a bit lagging versus the ramp up of the demand of the overall shift towards EV?
There's no doubt. But that's when I look straight at us, right? We, Gilbarco Veeder-Root, we played such a massive role in standardizing the fuel retail industry, right? From a safety perspective, from a technology perspective. And I think we have this right. And I think fundamentally a call to action to make that happen for this this industry, right? It's the next generation of fuel retail, right? It's just a different type of fuel, and we've got to stake that claim.
What's really surprising is that, electric vehicle as a technology has been here. I was shocked. So last night I was trying to prepare for our discussion, and it turns out that the first electric engine was invented, let's say, created or adopted for the car late 19th century. What happened in the next 100 years? I mean, where have we been? So what do you think was an issue on adopting the technology or to transition faster to the electric vehicles?
Yeah, it's a good point, right? I mean, I think you can look at it through a couple different vectors. The first one is you can't just have batteries and powertrains. You have to have the infrastructure to support those batteries and powertrains. We're still not at that point, right? So until that happens, the chicken and egg problem still exists. The second one is, look, technology and cost of technology has to become at a point, or has to be at a parity point with the market. And I again still don't think we're there, right? I think it's going to take years of development from this point even to get to a point to where battery electric vehicles are consistent and are at a price point that the majority of the market can afford.
Yeah. Speaking about batteries, and this question probably will put you under a little bit of pressure, but another argument I've read recently was, do we have on Earth enough resources to build enough lithium-ion batteries? So do we have enough cobalt? Do we have enough lithium on this planet to support the demand for electric vehicles? So what's your take on that? And there's no right or wrong, right? There are people just exchanging opinions and
yeah, I think it's an interesting question. Look, I joined this business for one reason, right? I believe fundamentally that what we're doing here is going to shift the world from a decarbonization perspective, right? And if you look at the value chain of how you produce e-mobility cars, it's not entirely sustainable, right? I mean, this notion of mining lithium, mining cobalt is horribly unsustainable, right? So I think there is a very deliberate and clear call to action to switch the chemistry away from lithium ion towards something that perhaps is more solid state. That presents a ton of advantages, right?
This is super interesting because I think what is missing usually in those arguments is the dynamic picture that we're not sticking to the same technology. Technologies are evolving as well, right? So what we see today might not be the case on 5 years from now. So.
Well, I think did you see all those pictures and news articles about the Tesla cars being stuck at the charging stations over the cold weather period?
Nope.
So, these Teslas, there was a massive queue. I think the one I saw was in Chicago, where there was many cars piled up because their batteries simply weren't charging, right? And if you think about battery chemistry, right? Lithium ion, those lithium ions are essentially flowing through an electrolyte, right? So it's this viscous liquid-based substance.
Yep.
What happens to a liquid when it gets cold outside?
Yeah.
It freezes, right? So all of a sudden, those lithium ions weren't able to flow. You can't charge your car. Your batteries get depleted really fast, right? So there are inherent issues with the current technology that have to be solved, right? And they will. I'm absolutely convinced.
And the fun thing is the early adopters of the whole thing are the naughty guys, right? So it's a bit interesting.
And my parents.
And your parents, of course. So there are like two hotspots on the heat map of the world.
Houston, Texas, and Norway. And China. Yeah.
I've Googled most commonly asked questions about EV.
Okay.
And a lot of them are very basic. A lot of them are a bit challenging. And I just want to go through the whole list of those questions, like top five. And I want to have your opinion. Again, there is no right or wrong, right? Okay. We're just exchanging opinions. So I would like to have your point of view on the EV, on the most frequently asked questions about the EV.
Okay.
First inquiry: when will electric vehicle range increase?
This year.
This year. So you have some
are we not doing fast
no
answers
time pressure.
Anymore?
No, relax. Right. We can have a decent discussion.
I think we're already starting to see that, right? I think you see some of these Chinese manufacturers putting out 400, 450 mile battery capacity. So I've lived in London a long time, but I still can't speak in kilometers. Tesla, we've known from Tesla for a while that they're looking to push the range of their cars as well. Look, battery technology is not static. And I think we're seeing battery technology get better. We're seeing charging speed and power get bigger and better. I don't think it's a static or Boolean answer. I think every single year you're going to see better and better range to help those second movers get over that range anxiety fear.
So when do you think we'll come to parity between fossil fuels and EVs? So the average range for the full tank versus the battery capacity?
Across the broad market? I mean, I think you're already seeing it, right? Tesla, Mercedes, BMW have that today. I think broadly speaking, maybe it'll take a couple more years to get to that parity point.
Cool. So the next inquiry: when will electric vehicle prices drop?
Now, right now.
Everything is happening now.
Yeah, so. the Chinese OEMs are flooding EV. I mean, I think I saw an announcement yesterday that there was a $10,000 EV car that got put out by Tata in India. Right? So I think there's going to be of flooding in the next couple of years, again, to get those second movers to pull out their credit cards and make that switch.
The third one, when will electric vehicle cars take over?
2030.
2030. You've got exact date, any particular point of time? July 3rd?
Yeah.
My birthday, for
July
example.
3rd. That's my anniversary. Oh, well done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Okay, July 3rd, 2030.
Yeah.
There'll be something. When will electric cars be affordable?
I think probably the same answer I gave you for question number 2. Now, obviously depends where on the economic scale you are. Depends on your definition of affordability. But the notion that electric cars as a whole are cost prohibitive, I think is a notion of the past.
And final one, when will electric vehicle cars be mandatory?
Depends on where in the world you are. If you're in the US and you're in California, I'd suggest that you're not buying an ICE car anymore. Norway, right? 90% of the new cars purchased are EV.
Yeah.
I think as a whole, again, somewhere between 2030 and 2035.
That's the average timeline driven by the government to adopt the electric vehicles.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Cool. So that was the POV on EV with Om Shankar. The complete ecosystem of the EV, as we discussed in the first part of the podcast, has not been settled yet. What we see, there are a bunch of guys from the payment and EV technology that come from out of nowhere. They're a bit more flexible, they're a bit more agile. And there's a clash between those new, some guys from out of context towards the petroleum retail that is by definition a very mature environment. So do you see this clash, or in other words, who will win the fight?
From the payment side?
From the payment side, first of all, yeah.
Interesting. Look, I think the singular problem to solve on the payment side for EV, for our patch, for fuel retail is how do you reduce the overall transaction fees for our customer, right? I think on average, our customers are paying circa 3% on every transaction that they're processing. And for a convenience retailer where margins are razor thin already, that is a painful thing, right? So I think the immediate thing is, how do payment players out there attach themselves to the processors that already exist in our space?
Correct.
Such that a convenience retailer only has one processor that they're using to process all transactions across their estate.
Yeah. And from that perspective, another 2 questions pop up. So the first one is the future of e-wallets for paying for EV, right? Do we really need that? Like, if I'm the customer, why should I have a dedicated method of payment rather than just using my standard credit card or debit card?
Yeah, I think this is a classic problem of techno push versus market pull.
Yeah.
The current state is that every charging manufacturer and every CPO has their own strategy on payment, right? Some people will require payment on an app. Some people will be okay with using a credit card for the transaction on some sort of gateway that exists on the charger itself, or an OPT that's next to the charger. Some people, the more advanced, are doing plug and charge, right? Which is, you essentially take the charge, or you take the plug out of the charger and you put it right in your car, and it authorizes the transaction simply by doing that act. I think that the only real market pull lens on this is that credit card must be enabled and mandatory.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that happen with European legislation right now. It's a huge call to action for us at Invenco, right? To be able to help these charger manufacturers and CPOs on that journey towards enabling credit cards for everyone to be used. So, I don't know if I have a perfect or beautiful answer for you, other than there's one answer that is clearly around credit cards, which is the direction that our industry is going.
Yeah. Because again, based on the current user experience. So customers need that. This is the way they shop today in retail, in any other segments. And why do they need unique way of paying for stuff that is like goes on top of the normal?
Yeah, I illustrated to you a nice example of an EV experience with my parents' Tesla, right?
Yep.
A couple months before that, when I took this role, I flew to the US and I made it a point to rent an EV car to make sure that I really had a Gemba-based view on how this market was maturing, how the technology was going. I live in London. I have a UK-based phone that doesn't allow me to download apps when I'm out of the country, okay? Unless I'm on Wi-Fi. I took the car. Instead of having a full charge on my battery, it had 10% left, okay, from the rental car agency.
Sounds like a challenge.
It was a challenge. I went out. I had 30 miles left. I went to an EVgo site. There's 4 chargers there. One of them was dead. The other 3 were occupied by Uber drivers that all had close to an hour remaining. There's no way I was going to sit there. I looked on my phone. I went to another site. I went to an Electrify America site. 4 chargers. 2 of them were occupied. One of them was dead. The other one required me to download an app. I couldn't download that bloody app.
Yeah.
I had 5 miles left on the tank. I went straight back to the airport and I said, please give me an ICE car. I can't handle this. And that is crazy, right? I'm in this industry, trying to fix this problem that is so broken, right? So, again, it illustrates it really illustrates the challenges that exist. But
one of my previous guests had a great take on it. He said something like, when you talk about the innovation or evolution of things, it doesn't happen in a silo. So even if you have a perfect technology, in 21st century, in 2024, everything is so connected.
Yeah.
You need to bring the whole ecosystem with you. And this is a super complex decision or a super complex goal. So it's really hard to really innovate on your own, right? Without the broader ecosystem.
This is my plug for what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
What's beautiful about the Gilbarco Vita route and the Vontier play with EV charging infrastructure is that as a whole, we have control over almost every single part of the value chain, right? We have the ability of creating as vertically integrated of a tech stack and a solution stack as possible, right? And inherent in that is the ability to control each piece and make a much more homogeneous and harmonized value chain and ultimately technological proposition, right? So that's a powerful thing for us here.
But also the consumer journey.
Yeah.
If we think about the broader context of the future of mobility, it's not only about EV, right? So probably we also discussed that probably in every single episode of this show, but the petrol station of today is not necessarily what it will be in the future. So a part of EV. There are a lot of speculations about other business models, other ways of doing things and selling and adding value to the customer. And one of them is autonomous stores. So how do you see those two things matching together?
Yeah, I love it. So when I took this job, I spent as much time as possible talking to our customers, right? And most of them are excited and ready to deploy, but they're all nervous around one thing, which is how protected is my investment? What's the ROI on that investment? And one of the reasons why we have this leap of faith assumption that convenience retail is going to mass adopt EV charging is that it's a lot easier to hit a return rate that's acceptable. The charge point operator of the past had one business model, which was, I'm going to get people to come to my charging station and I hope that they buy enough electrons for me to make my money back. Okay. That hasn't proven to be a favorable return. But the interesting dynamic is that a convenience store has adjacent opportunities for our customer, the retailer, to make money. And that's by getting people who are charging their cars for 40 minutes at a time to get out of those cars and go right into the convenience store and spend money on high margin goods. The challenge is the labor model is broken. Okay. You can't get people to work at convenience stores anymore. And all of a sudden it presents us with this really interesting dynamic, which is EV charging sites need to be everywhere, right? They need to be mass adopted, but you might not be able to make enough money by just selling electricity or electrons alone. Is there a way to monetize those customers that are charging in an OpEx light way? And that's why I think autonomous stores are so beautiful, right? So at Vontier, we created a startup called Juxta. And the goal of Juxta was, how do we create this hyper-targeted retail format that's portable, that can be put anywhere in the world, hopefully right next to an EV charging site. You'll see many of those deployed in 2024, in order to help our customers with just that, right? It's giving consumers access to retail goods in an OpEx light way that enables this EV charging business model to actually work.
This is a really interesting business model. And, it's interesting to see the dynamics in different regions, because some regions are really picking it up. I'm talking about Poland, for example, or Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Some regions have already made some stress test of the concept, and it kind of didn't fly for whatever reason. Maybe consumers were not ready for that new experience. Maybe the technology was not there yet. But Amazon Go and all these kind of business models. So how do you see the short-term future of that? So do you think now is the proper time, from the technology point of view, from the consumer experience and from consumer expectations, to finally ramp up the whole thing, and it can finally fly and prove that it has legs?
We're starting to see a tremendous amount of new deployments. And one of the reasons for that is that our competition, Juxta's competition, historically had been looking to solve one piece of the profit equation, right? Which was, I'm going to take my tech, I'm going to go to an existing store, I'm going to rip out all the labor from that store, and I'm going to put in this fancy computer vision technology and sensor technology, and hopefully customers will feel okay with that experience. That's so fundamentally different than the experience that they've been used to with labor in the store. Okay. That's proving to not be a favorable strategy. What is a favorable strategy is when you get hyper targeted with the application that you're using the technology for. Again, it's a market pull versus a technology push question. The biggest amount of deployments that we're seeing solve very specific problems, right? Which is, I need a very speedy transaction. Okay. iFi, Amazon Go, two strong players in this space are deploying hundreds of stores in hospitals, in sports complexes, where time is absolutely of the essence. We're seeing a number of deployments for opportunities that are very, very small format, a small footprint, right? Where you can deploy a store, like we talked about at an EV location, where you create a small footprint within a apartment complex, right? So I think the answer is net new locations, not existing locations, that have very specific problems to solve are the ones that are doing well. Where you are just trying to strip out labor in order to trim your OpEx, that's not proven to be as safe. Will only continue to go up as consumers become more experienced with that type of journey. Yeah,
exciting times. Well, Om, thanks a lot for this talk. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, man.
So see you in the next episode.
Cheers. It was fun.